Hello and welcome to the podcast Unspoken Days.
Hi, everyone. I'm Richard.
And I'm Jennifer. Thanks for tuning in. Here's today's story.
Lately, I've been struggling. I don't like to talk about sad things, but my head is full of thoughts like, why is my life like this? Would it all just end if I died? My daughter has a heart defect, brain damage, and hearing loss. She needs me, every hour of every day. We go to so many departments: endocrinology, nephrology, neurosurgery, cardiology, psychiatry. It never ends. Every 3 months, every 6 months, we're back at the hospital. I guess you could say we live there. Even the doctors don't say much anymore. Okay, see you in 3 months, they tell me. One doctor said, there's not much left we can do. Maybe take a trip together. I cried the whole way home. You know, she used to be healthy. That's what hurts the most. Now she has diabetes too. 8 blood sugar checks a day, 5 insulin shots. Every meal fed by hand. Every bathroom trip, every pill, every sigh, mine to manage. I've tried hiring caregivers. They always quit. My daughter only wants me. Without me, she can't do anything. And me, I don't really have friends anymore. Not because I didn't try, but my life became too heavy for them. No brunches, no coffee dates. Even a phone call feels like a luxury. Every day feels the same. She asks the same questions, and I answer again and again as if it's the first time. She calls me constantly, not a moment of silence in between. If I'm cooking or in the yard, I have to drop everything and run to her side. The house has to shine. If anything's on the floor, she panics. I tell myself, skip cleaning, just rest, but my hands move on their own. I can't stop. Sometimes my husband comes home late and quietly washes the dishes I left behind. And sometimes that makes me angry because I want him to say something, to argue, so I can finally fall apart. When I'm sad, I want to talk right away, but by the time he's home, I'm too tired to dig the feelings back up. So I stay quiet, and it piles up, like dust on the shelves I just cleaned. One night, I secretly took my daughter's antidepressants. Just for a few days, my husband found out and told me to see a doctor, but I didn't even have the energy to sit there and explain everything. So I stopped. On bright days, my sadness feels sharper. Still, my husband once took me to see flowers. In the pictures, I almost look okay. I've been holding on with faith, but I'm so tired. I'm not strong enough for this. Why would God give me a burden this heavy? Sometimes I just wish I could fall asleep and wake up 30 years later. I feel like I've lived through every joy, every sorrow life has to offer. There's nothing left but fatigue and sadness. So if I could, I'd skip ahead to the part where it's all over. Because living through every single day between now and then feels like too much.
Today's letter gives us a really intimate and honestly quite wrenching look into what it's like. The experience of long-term, very intensive caregiving for a child with incredibly complex medical needs.
Yeah, it's more than just one person's story. We need to see it almost like a clinical picture of chronic exhaustion.
Exactly. And how that slides towards a real mental health crisis, often fueled by, well, isolation.
So we're using this experience today as a kind of factual case study to understand the systemic breakdown, really, that happens when one person is just asked to sustain something unsustainable.
Right. Our goal here, our mission, if you like, is to really distill the specific demands and I think crucially the emotional paradoxes that come through so clearly in the letter.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So where it starts, what's laid out for us is this overwhelming medical world. It's not just caring for one illness. It's navigating this whole bureaucracy almost of complex conditions that keep piling up.
Absolutely. The complexity of the daughter's health is, well, it's huge, and it just keeps growing, doesn't it?
It does.
The letter mentions starting with a heart defect and brain damage, hearing loss, and now, on top of all that, diabetes has been added, which immediately ramps up the complexity and the minute-by-minute watching that's needed.
And the list of specialists required, I mean, it reads like a hospital directory that just keeps spinning, doesn't it? Endocrinology, nephrology, neurosurgery, cardiology, psychiatry.
It's constant.
The caregiver mentions that every 3 months or maybe every 6 months, they're right back at the hospital. She even jokes, or I mean, not jokes, that they basically live there.
That phrase really stuck out, living there.
Yeah, and this constant rotation, it just prevents the caregiver from ever really settling, or letting their guard down even for a moment.
And think about the emotional weight of that constant movement, too. Every visit is potentially a new diagnosis, right? Or a setback.
Or maybe just confirmation that the medical system is, well, managing but not really fixing the underlying problem.
Yeah.
And the profound psychological fatigue here, it really stems from that ambiguity. But then that ambiguity just ends so abruptly. It's one of the most painful moments in the letter, I think.
Which part is that?
That emotional climax where the doctor basically delivers this kind of concession, telling the caregiver, there's not much left we can do, maybe take a trip together.
Oh, wow. That's a brutally cold kind of acceptance, isn't it?
It is.
It sounds almost practical, like a piece of advice, but after years of hopeful, active treatment, it must feel like a complete dismissal of all the fighting they did.
Well, what's fascinating here, clinically speaking, is that moment really marks the shift. You go from active engagement, from hoping for treatment, to this palliative acceptance.
Right.
And for the caregiver, any relief from finally having some certainty, okay, the battle is ending, even if it's lost, that relief is just immediately swamped by the reality of grief.
The letter says she cried the whole way home.
The whole way home. This is mourning the potential, mourning the healthy life that was stolen.
And the mourning is made worse by memory, isn't it? The letter points out that contrast, she used to be healthy, that's often what hurts the most.
Exactly. They're forced to live comparing now to then, to this previous healthy life. And that just makes the constant demands of the present even harder to bear.
It's the baseline, isn't it? That healthy memory. It's the standard against which everything now is measured and, well, found lacking. It just compounds the psychological load.
Right. And that's even before we shift focus to what daily life is like at home.
Okay, let's move there. Because if the hospital is overwhelming, the home life sounds simply brutal. Breaks seem impossible.
The logistical demands are what we really need to focus on here. I mean, just listen to this. 8 blood sugar checks a day.
8 times.
5 insulin shots.
Yeah.
Every single meal has to be fed by hand. Every pill, every trip to the bathroom, every sigh even. It all requires hands-on, minute-by-minute management.
It sounds less like caregiving and more like running some kind of high-stakes internal clock that you can never, ever turn off. It's an immediate physical interruption every couple of hours, just compounding across the entire 24-hour cycle.
We call that a massive cognitive load.
Yeah.
And it's amplified by the constant disruption to any kind of schedule. Think about what the caregiver never gets to do.
Like what?
Read a book through, watch a TV show, even just make a proper meal without being interrupted multiple times to check a number or give a shot. Your brain is constantly snapping back into crisis mode.
Just thinking about it is exhausting.
It really is. And the letter reveals this complete critical reliance. They mentioned trying to hire caregivers.
Right, but they always quit.
They always quit.
Yeah.
Because the daughter only wants me. This means there is literally no one else who can reliably step in. This person is, quite literally, irreplaceable in this role.
So the system, the doctor, suggests a palliative path, maybe take a trip together. But the daily reality we just talked about makes that completely impossible.
Exactly. It's an impossible prescription given the logistics. And if the caregiver is perpetually on, what happens when, external social systems try to connect?
Friends drift away. The letter says life became too heavy for friends.
That social isolation is just devastating. And it's not because the caregiver didn't try, right? It's because the structure of their life simply cannot accommodate casual interaction anymore.
Brunches, coffee dates, even a simple phone call becomes a luxury, something you have to ration.
Yeah, because the caregiver can't really provide that fundamental thing needed for friendship, uninterrupted presence.
Right.
Even if they manage to have a conversation, their mind is partly elsewhere, constantly monitoring for the next check, the next need. And the mental drain from this is made worse by repetition.
Answering the same questions again and again.
With not a moment of silence in between, as the letter puts it.
So the external demands are just impossible. And yet the letter introduces this other layer of self-imposed demand, this compulsion for external order.
Ah, yes. The need to maintain a shining house, panicking if anything is out of place.
It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it, when you're that exhausted?
It does, but this is a really critical insight for you, the listener. This isn't about poor time management or just liking things neat. This is likely a psychological coping mechanism. We might call it a trauma of control response.
Trauma of control. Explain that.
Well, the caregiver is desperately trying to impose total order, perfection onto their physical environment. Because the biological reality, the illness itself, is chaotic, it's progressive, it's utterly uncontrollable.
So cleaning the shelves becomes a stand-in for fixing the heart defect.
In a way, yes. It's this frantic, exhausting attempt to create one small, predictable sanctuary in the midst of chaos.
And the letter even confirms that paradox. The caregiver knows, logically, they should skip the cleaning and rest. But she says her hands move on their own. She can't stop.
The physical act becomes compulsive. It drives them further into exhaustion, precisely when rest is the most needed thing. Because if they stop cleaning, the house might feel chaotic, reflecting the internal chaos they can't fix in their daughter's body.
That need for control. It brings us to maybe the most surprising and emotionally complex detail in the whole letter.
You mean the dynamic with the husband?
Yeah. He tries to be supportive, right, but it inadvertently creates this whole new kind of tension.
He comes home late, the letter says, and quietly washes the dishes I left behind.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, psychologically speaking.
Definitely. The husband's action, quiet, supportive help, it's clearly intended to lessen the stress.
Of course.
But the caregiver reacts with this profound anger, wishing he would argue with her so they could finally fall apart.
Wow. The quiet support denies her the emotional release she desperately needs.
It's a complete reversal of what we'd normally assume supportive
Yeah.
behavior feels like, isn't it? Why would silence trigger anger?
Yeah, why?
Well, silence, especially when it's coupled with competence, him just getting things done and applies the situation as manageable. His quiet help actually removes the immediate justification for an explosion. The caregiver is craving permission to fail, to collapse, to just declare that this burden is too heavy. An argument, a conflict that would provide the necessary permission slip, if you will, for an emotional breakdown.
It would validate her pain publicly, even if just to her husband.
Exactly. So instead, she's forced to maintain her composure even when support is present because the support is too quiet, too competent.
And then there's the timing issue, the challenge of delayed processing.
Right. By the time the husband gets home, the caregiver is just too exhausted to dig the feelings back up, as she puts it.
So the feelings don't disappear.
No, they just pile up beneath the surface. She uses this image like dust on the shelves I just cleaned. They're too tired to communicate the sheer scale of their trauma, so they swallow it again, adding to that total depletion.
And this hidden, overwhelming emotional weight. It leads to that immediate and deeply concerning search for relief.
The brief, secret attempt to self-medicate.
Yeah.
Using the daughter's antidepressants.
Yep.
Now, that action, while obviously dangerous, it really highlights the absolute extremity of the emotional need at that point.
And the exhaustion was so total when the husband found out and told her to see a doctor.
She didn't even have the energy to explain why she'd taken the pills. The depletion was just too deep for communication, even during a crisis of that magnitude.
That lack of energy for self-advocacy or even just explanation, it speaks volumes, doesn't it, about the depth of the collapse.
If you don't have the energy left to explain your own pain, you are truly running on empty.
And yet, somehow, they have to maintain some appearance of external normalcy.
Yes, the letter knows the sadness feels sharper on bright, sunny days. But when the husband takes pictures of them among flowers, the caregiver notes they almost look okay.
That external appearance of okayness must be another crushing weight in itself.
Absolutely. The brightness of a sunny day can feel insulting, incongruous when your reality is so dark and relentlessly demanding.
And the photo captures this moment of forced serenity, which only further masks the internal state of collapse from the outside world.
Right. And that appearance of normalcy becomes another layer of isolation. If they look fine in the pictures, who's going to believe the depth of the exhaustion?
So help isn't offered because the suffering isn't visible. It just perpetuates the cycle.
Which brings us, sadly, to the ultimate culmination of this exhaustion, the desire for radical escape. This is perhaps the most difficult passage in the entire letter.
The question of faith comes up. Why would God give me a burden this heavy?
This is where the fatigue connects to a total spiritual and emotional depletion. The caregiver articulates this desire to just skip time, wishing she could fall asleep and wake up 30 years later.
Wow, 30 years.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the caregiver explicitly states they feel like they've lived through every joy, every sorrow. There's nothing left for them, is how it feels.
The future holds no promise of relief, only unending repetition of the exhausting demands we've been talking about.
The tank isn't just empty. It feels like the gauge itself is broken. The anticipation of unending demand, just knowing that tomorrow will be exactly like today and the day after and the day after. That can be as debilitating as the demand itself.
So the final heartbreaking conclusion is that living through every single day from now until the end, it just feels like too much.
It really illustrates a fundamental failure sometimes of our systems to support individuals through chronic high-demand caregiving. It forces them into this state where they're psychologically and spiritually exhausted just by the act of looking ahead.
So the primary takeaway for you, our listener, has to be the necessity of recognizing this profound isolation. It's not just about the physical work, the insulin shots.
No, it's the emotional complexity, the repetition, the psychological need for control through cleaning, that desire for conflict as this strange, desperate way to get emotional release.
And the key behavioral signs are often really counterintuitive, aren't they? Anger at support, frantic activity when rest is clearly needed. These are indicators of a crisis, not just stress.
Which leads to a final thought, maybe a provocative one. If hope is defined by expecting some future break, some respite, some positive change, what happens when that hope is just completely eliminated by the unrelenting chronic nature of a condition? The caregiver here has reached a point of total depletion. So this raises an important question for you to consider, thinking about the systems that support, or often fail to support, long-term caregivers. What is the practical difference between chronic exhaustion and absolute hopelessness?